But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, banking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello, and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise, and how is everybody doing today? I have to say, it's been an interesting week. It's been a fucking week. One thing that we all got to see this week was that a lot of liberals are more concerned when Donald Trump threatens to expel the entire population of Gaza, most likely killing them all in the process, or trying to, than when Joe Biden actually fucking does it. Because the proposal, I mean, yes, he added the golf course and the fucking Riviera and all the other bullshit that he likes to add to things, because he's like one of the worst people. But as Egypt pointed out when they unceremoniously rejected the idea that they should simply just take in a whole bunch of people who had been, the entire population of the Gaza Strip after being expelled from there, ethnically cleansed, they pointed out that they had already rejected this proposal once when Joe Biden came to them with it, all the way back in early 2024, when it was called a humanitarian corridor. And liberals were kind of cool with that. Remember, I know it's a long time ago, it's like maybe 2 months, where liberals were like, you people who are opposing genocide, that's just a single issue. You're single issue voters. It's just a crime of crimes. Look, there's all sorts of other things that Kamala Harris stands for, like the thing, like she doesn't like immigrants, and she kind of threw trans people under the bus. All the things that she stands for. So you're just single issue voters, as we were watching for like 15 months and trying to find some way to make it stop, as they came up fucking new words for massacres every fucking week. You got flower massacres, you got fucking aid massacres, tent massacres. Oh, let's do another flower massacre again. Let's have a fucking callback, why don't we? I don't remember like the fucking Krasensteins getting worked up about that shit, but they're certainly excited about this. And the interesting thing is, what's going on the ground is totally inconsistent with any actual intention to do this. In fact, Trump's already walked back the bit about sending U.S. troops there because somebody sat him down and said, you realize you send U.S. troops there in what would be possibly the most unpopular war the U.S. has ever started. They're going to be huge fucking casualties right off the bat. You understand that, right? It's going to be years and years of intense house-to-house fighting, and probably it's going to result in the U.S. having to sort of leave in defeat, as Israel already has. And then he started saying, and then he was like, oh, no, okay, we won't do U.S. troops. So, like, who the fuck would do this? Like, what, Israel again? But, I mean, what's going on the ground is inconsistent with any kind of intention to do this. Like, you don't, as John Elmer has pointed out, as other people have pointed out, dismantle the Netzarim corridor, which was, like, the rapid access route. The only, like, semi-protected access route to get into the Gaza Strip in order to attack it on the ground, if you're planning on sending troops in immediately. You just don't do that. They, Israel and the U.S. had been saying for months and months and months that Palestinians were never going to be allowed to go back to the north of Gaza. They're back through the dismantled Netzarim corridor. Now, and the level of cognitive dissonance, I wrote a piece about this. It's on my Stabsuck. That I'm seeing from a lot of liberals is really next level, because they've convinced themselves that the aid just got cut off. It's like the aid was cut off all along. It only just got turned back on. Yeah, according to people on the ground, it's gone from maybe a couple of hundred truckloads a month for 2 million people to about 600 a day, which is around the average pre-October 2023. It was totally inadequate then. It's even more inadequate now, but it's the difference between totally inadequate and people are, the entire population's about to starve to death. It's a huge improvement. Like, if you follow, like, the Gaza Soup Kitchen page on Facebook or wherever else they are, you see, they show what they're cooking every day. And for the first time in months, they're cooking with, like, fucking fresh ingredients. They've been having to, like, cook with tinned food that had gone off because it was just the only thing that was left. And just to have something. And now, like, they just recently I saw they were, like, doing fresh chicken wings and stuff like that. Not, there are a lot of things that need to get in that aren't being allowed in. I saw a thing on the Telegram of the Resistance News Network, doctor in Gaza saying no dialysis supplies have been allowed in at all yet. And they've already, just over the past 15 months, lost like 40 kidney patients due to the inability to give dialysis because the equipment wasn't being allowed in to do it. You need supplies to do it. And, yeah. So, not to mention things like heavy equipment to move all this rubble. And like, construction materials to rebuild. Engineers with the Gaza municipality are saying if the siege were lifted and they were allowed to just get all of the reconstruction materials and equipment that they need in order to do it, contrary to the UN estimates I have heard where they say it could take like 200 years or whatever, those estimates are based on the assumption that the U.S.-Israeli siege continues indefinitely, so they never get the equipment they need. So they're basically having to do this shit by hand. But the municipality's engineers say if they get the heavy equipment they need, if they get the building materials they need, then they could clear all the rubble within like a year's time and get a pretty good start on reconstruction, and possibly have the whole reconstruction finished within as little as 3 years. And that's what we ought to be fighting for. That's what we ought to be talking about, because we've gotten to the point where they are already starting to rebuild. Like, streetlights went back on for the first time in like 15 months in Nusayrat refugee camp. They're already like clearing the rubble with what equipment they have, which is totally inadequate, and what fuel they have, which is still totally inadequate. But that's happening. And that does not really sound like Israel and the U.S. are looking to resume this in a hurry. And the other thing that's kind of inconsistent is the sort of stuff that has been sort of disclosed, admitted by Israeli officials in the past couple of weeks. First we had the senior Israeli prosecutor, this is like I think a fortnight ago now, who said they aren't bringing any rape charges around October 7th. Because after looking at all the video footage, all the body cam footage from fighters that they'd captured, that's captured body cam footage, the fighters captured or killed, whatever. But in any case, all of the CCTV, all of the eyewitnesses, all of the forensic, they have not found a single case. They have not had a single person come forward and say it happened to them. They have not had a single witness they consider credible come forward and say it happened. So, at this point, that is just dead. actually, and the people who had promoted it based on completely dodgy, obviously, totally absurd witnesses, like the people from Zaka, who changed their stories repeatedly. Those people should have known better then, but at this point they haven't, the rug's been pulled out from under them. And now the latest thing is, Chief of Staff of the Israeli military has now admitted, as was already fairly clear from actually Israeli reporting, that has only really been translated into English by Electronic Intifada and I think maybe Mondoweiss. The Chief of Staff of the Israeli military said he gave the mass Hannibal order, the order to kill Israelis rather than let them get captured. And also there's been an admission of just how much heavy ordnance was fired by the IDF at the Nova rave outside of Gaza. And, it was enough for a small war in itself. So, now, if you're raring to go and you're trying to get people to go back, I don't think that you let the air out of the genocidal climate that was created by this propaganda in the first place. That kind of feels like they're trying to back off of that, which makes sense from their point of view because it didn't go well for them. By any objective measure, it was actually a complete waste and a disaster for them. Yeah, it was a much bigger disaster for the Palestinians because, as Trump sort of admitted in an aside, as many as 700,000 to 800,000 out of 2.3 million were murdered. Just sort of mention that in an aside, but he said it over and over again in various contexts, so it sounds like that is the official White House estimate. Nobody in the media has followed it up. They should, because if that is the official internal estimate of the White House, then that puts it alongside East Timor, the U.S.-Indonesian genocide in East Timor, as the largest proportional genocide since the Holocaust. So, yeah, and also a bunch of incel chuds got to have access to all of our personal data. It's been an interesting week. So, let's see who's on their bullshit today. Or previous to today. I had heard that this was complete nonsense. And so I thought it was entirely worth checking out. Jon Stewart on whether Dems' Trump is a fascist accusations are warranted. I was thinking of checking that out. Hopefully not getting copyright struck for reacting to it, although it's on YouTube already, so maybe that'll be cool. And start out with that. We've got a bunch of other stuff. We've got actually some interesting stuff from the Surf Times talking about how the DNC are outright sort of blaming Muslims for Trump's victory and sort of gloating. We've got Vush, Trump walks back USA takeover of Gaza. We've got Brianna Wu on Nancy Mace's bathroom bill. Speaking of capos and scabs. Although we should be fair to Brianna Wu. She is only interested in ethics in trans rights campaigning. We've also got Tim Pool. Democrats move to impeach Trump after he says U.S. will own Gaza. We've got, this is a really implausible title, Democrat tells people to fight in the streets in unhinged clip. The pictures of Hakeem Jeffries, who is the last person I would ever expect to say that, so I have a feeling he didn't. We've also got Graham Linehan talking about his activism. What do you think, chat? Any personal preferences? I'm gonna start out with some of this Jon Stewart to see if it's... Hey, everybody! Okay...
was as disorienting and chaotic. The return to 1600 Trumpylvania Avenue was as disorienting and chaotic as I imagined. But then we had a weekend. Oh, what has happened to Libs?
Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit.
I was promised a new era of American prosperity and greatness. What happened?
A powerful new Chinese AI tool called DeepSeek is threatening the U.S. dominance of this emerging technology.
The technology being plagiarism-fueled garbage machines.
DeepSeek is on par with what OpenAI and Google have made, even though those...
I'm gonna skip over. This seems to be like the news bit. I want to get into the bit
enough
where
about the apparently tenuous underpinning of everything we've banked our entire future economy on. What's the news freaking out about closer to home?
Friday night massacre.
Late Friday night purge. A chilling purge.
The purge.
I don't need a picture of fucking Chuck Schumer looking kind of content along with the words "a chilling purge." That sounds like he's had an enema.
Ah! Trump has ushered in the purge!
Hello, Riveroon. How you doing?
I, for one... I, for one, will take full advantage by doing some unpermitted lawn work. Your God is powerless. Although, just in case I'm misinterpreting, what is this purge about exactly?
Breaking news, the mass firing of government agency watchdogs.
Trump fired at least 17 inspectors general.
No! He got rid of 17 inspectors general. That only leaves no one knows how many left.
Okay, I'm gonna skip over this a bit.
It's fake. I'll never tell. The point is, we have 17 less inspectors general. Who knows how many generals will now go uninspected? Democrats, inspire my anger in the least charismatic way possible.
Donald Trump's decision to fire 12 of the federal government's independent watchdogs is a glaring sign that it's a golden age.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. I mean, did you see what fucking fuck Schumer was posting on Twitter as these like incel chud dickheads were going and just sort of waltzing into federal government departments and getting access to all of our fucking personal data? And he was like, he had this whole fucking routine of, you thinking about the Super Bowl? Guacamole's gonna be more expensive. You thinking about driving? Driving's gonna be more expensive. You thinking about tomatoes? Tomatoes are about to be more expensive. And it's like, I mean, yeah, you just see, if you go to his fucking page, you see all of this constantly, like a whole string of it, and it's like, what is this, like Chuck GPT?
And Donald Trump's decision to fire 12 of the federal government's independent watchdogs is a glaring sign that it's a golden age for abuse in government and even corruption.
Even corruption? I like it. I like the idea how corruption would be such an unusual thing in the U.S. that you'd have to say even.
He started again, right? Is that twice? Like, no recognition, just started again. Is that what happened? Normally, humans in that scenario would go, oh, God, I'm sorry, where was I? Let me take that from the top, and maybe this time I'll look up. Can you legally just restart without acknowledgement? Is Schumer AI? Is he DeepSeek? But regardless of how slowly NPC Chuck Schumer laid it out, what's the map? Why do I have an axe?
This is a specific law that requires notice, 30 days, and a statement of reasons, substantive and detailed rationale.
What? I'm sorry, what? Oh, apparently you can fire them, but you have to give them 30 days notice. Oh, so that's what we're upset about? No! You can do it, but not in that font!
Like,
that's Hitler's font!
I mean, let me just note, there actually is a Nazi font. Most people don't know which one it is. Everybody thinks it's Fraktur. It isn't. Actually, that's the one the Nazis abolished because Hitler at some point got it in his mind that he decided to call it a Jewish font. That had been, like, the font pretty much everything in German was printed in for, like, 200 years before that. But there is one, it's called Tannenberg. And that was invented in 1935. It's named after a historic German battle. Nazi shit. You see it. Actually, there are heritage listed tube stations in Berlin where the names of the stations are in Tannenberg. And if you look at like the Unter den Linden is no longer Unter den Linden, so I imagine they've gotten rid of the sign as well. But you can see it in some of those stations, for example. That is the actual Nazi font, and everybody gets that wrong.
First law of thermodynamics. Every action is met with a very not equal overreaction, thus throwing off our ability to know when shit is actually getting real. Like last week's pardons.
These pardons are sick. They are offensive. They are un-American.
This is one of the most egregious, despicable acts in American history. This is
wait. How the fuck are you going to say that after the last 15 months? How the fuck are you going to say anything on this level? Yeah, I mean, the pardons were fucked up. But, I mean, not exactly shocking, but fucked up. But, I mean, after the past 15 months, you're going to say that's the most despicable thing in American history? It's not even the most despicable thing in the past year.
Aryan Takeover 101.
I knew I should have taken that
How the
class.
fuck would she know?
And
when was Rachel Maddow ever against? I mean, the so-called she calls herself the national security liberal. I mean, she never met a fucking whistleblower she didn't want to see locked up. So how the fuck's she gonna talk about authoritarianism anyway?
In submissive liberal crying 101. Oh, do what you will, Trumpisky. Was it shitty? Yes. Should you have let some of those terrible people? No. Is it an abuse of pardon power? I don't know. But that is his constitutional power. Again,
wait,
for some reason.
this is so. Now I see what I mean, because all I saw was people saying, "Wow, he's just totally missing the point." Yeah, because he's saying, "Well, but wait, that's not illegal," and it's like, that's not the point. So a lot of this stuff is not illegal. That doesn't make it not fascism. That does not make it a move. That does not immediately rule out it being a move towards fascism. A lot of the moves towards fascism are totally legal. I mean, any historical fucking example you can come up with.
We have given presidents the power of a king. And then we say, oh, by the way, like, with that power, you're not going to get all, like, kingly and shit on us, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's fucked up that they have that power.
To put that in constitutional terms, if I could, don't hate the player, hate the founding fathers.
Well, I mean, and yes, absolutely, definitely do, but like that, so there's an arguable legal basis for a thing, and therefore it cannot be a move, it can't be a dangerous move towards, like, well, at the very least, more authoritarianism or like a fascist break or something like that. I mean, that's not how that works.
That's not. Why do we even have it? Because I don't know if you've met Donald Trump. He pushes shit.
President Trump deploying executive action to end birthright citizenship.
Well, yeah, that's the point. He pushes shit.
This unconstitutional, un-American attack.
Shredding our Constitution.
Wants to be a strongman authoritarian.
No, well,
Birthright citizenship was very specifically tailored to send a message to people that America was a place, an idea.
No, that's not what it was. It was specifically tailored to ensure that the people who, I mean, yes, of course it's a fucking place. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? The point of it was that you wanted to make sure that you couldn't just declare an entire class of people born and raised in the U.S. non-citizens in order to, say, enslave them. That was what it was about.
It wasn't for one race. It wasn't for one gender. Citizenship in America...
Well, I mean, you're getting ahead of yourself, John. Because, yeah, actually, a woman by the name of Blackwell, who wanted to get a license to practice law in Illinois in the 1880s, she actually went to the Supreme Court, said, you know, we got this 14th Amendment. One of the things it says is we're supposed to have equal protection of the laws. And that should mean that I can't just be barred from the bar for being a woman. And the Supreme Court said, yes, it fucking can. And told her to fuck off. So, yeah, getting ahead of yourself there.
Was based
in fact, I mean, the first beneficiaries of, like, the 14th Amendment in the Supreme Court were corporations.
Where you were, not who you were. And to just stroke of a pen, finally I agree. That is authoritarian.
We do begin tonight with the federal judge blocking President Trump's executive order that would end birthright citizenship.
And we're back.
Oh, well, yeah, except here's the thing. That is a preliminary injunction. That case is still active. It still has to reach a judgment on the merits. I mean, obviously, it completely lacks merit, but it can be kicked up to the Court of Appeals. And from the Court of Appeals, it can show up in the Supreme Court. And I tend to think that it will probably fail because the idea that that the 14th Amendment does not have birthright citizenship in it, I mean, that's fringe even by, like, Federalist Society standards. But it isn't over.
See how easy that was? It was a dictatorship, and then the judge went... It's like when you have an electric fence. You never check it, you're not really sure if it works. Because you're a good boy.
This is really missing the point.
Day, zap. By the way, I fundamentally disagree with the use of electric fences. It is true. I prefer to discipline my dogs with a series of passive-aggressive comments about their weight.
Like, I mean, this is missing the point. First of all, even just sort of trying to get rid of the 14th Amendment just by an executive order and putting, fitting the idea of just getting rid of birthright citizenship that has existed in the U.S. since the 1860s within the Overton window actually is kind of concerning. It is kind of a fashy thing to do. And there's really no guarantee that the Supreme Court won't say, yeah, why not?
Really tearing through the bowl tonight, huh? Take a breath, Tubbs. It's called kibble, not gobble. By the way, my dog's name is Tubbs. Anyway, birthright citizenship.
Isn't that fucking Dennis Prager's dog's name?
Back!
No, obviously we'll appeal it.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the point. They will appeal it. In fact, it's still a preliminary injunction. There's a merits judgment that still has to be reached. It still actually has to go to the Court of Appeals.
Damn you, constitutionally enshrined judicial review of executive action and its release to the appellate process. Look, we are facing a deluge of these executive actions, and certainly we must be prepared for those most vulnerable to the consequences of these actions.
Thank you. Well, you noticed.
But this is all fascist argument has become almost a reflex for the left.
Yeah, I mean, you just do some fast shit. You put, like, literal neo-Nazis in key positions in the cabinet. You try to revoke the citizenship of large numbers of people. You try to, like, revoke the ability to exist legally to, like, an entire marginalized population of trans people. And suddenly people start to suggest that maybe there's something fascist going on. Isn't that
Donald Trump promised to be a dictator on day one, and he's carried that forward through the entire week.
5 days into this administration, the abuse is already rampant.
Throughout the rest of the week, shredding the Constitution as he went.
On a fascism scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being peak
shut the fuck up, James Carville. When nobody wanted to hear from this ass.
How would you rate Trump's first?
I mean, he's probably kicking himself that he didn't advise the Democrats to run on doing this shit.
Wait.
Mussolini to the Holocaust. I would say it's not fascism. Do I not understand what fascism is? And also, if I may...
yeah, you don't understand what fascism is.
Petty. Why are we asking someone who, at the end of January, still has his Christmas tree up?
Well, I mean, that's just on brand for James Carville. James Carville is the Christmas tree of the 1990s vintage Democrats. And they've still got his ass up.
Why are we asking him anything? You know who used to leave the Christmas tree up all the time? Hitler. Somebody in the audience literally jumped my Hitler joke. You know who used to do that, by the way?
Like...
Pol Pot. Now look, I have a lot of fear that as this term goes on, things are going to get a little fascisty.
Oh, they're gonna get a little fascisty. Like, eventually they're gonna get a little bit fascisty. Like, I mean... The thing is, there's absolutely no guarantee. Like, the Skrmetti case, I'm not sure where the stress goes on that name. I assumed when it was spelled Skrmetti, I assumed the first time I saw that it was a typo, but apparently it isn't. That is still pending in the Supreme Court, and that should worry the fuck out of us, actually. There's a reason that there are all these very live discussions, particularly amongst trans people, particularly amongst queer people, but not only, about, like, what the hell do you do? Like, where do you go? And let me just, since that came to mind, because I had it in my mind to do something longer on this, but let me just say, a lot of people are saying, well, let's seek asylum somewhere. And let me just say, if you got a U.S. passport, don't. Like, fucking don't. Because, first of all, the thing about the asylum process is you get treated like shit. You get incarcerated. It is designed to deny valid claims in most places. You get and the thing about asylum as a legal concept is it exists specifically to provide a right to enter and remain in a country to people who otherwise would not have any. And the thing about a U.S. passport is that you've pretty much always got at least a right to visa-free entry for, a month or two. And a lot of the time, even more than that. And you're also very low on the deportation priorities. A lot of countries really don't give a shit if people in the U.S. overstay. There are all sorts of breaks that U.S. citizens get on things like being able to apply for long-term residence from within the country rather than having to do it in advance of entering. I mean, in Germany, for example, you get a whole lot of breaks. A U.S. passport really greases things over there. So there are way more options, and you shouldn't be thinking of it just in terms of asylum. First of all, it is by no means guaranteed that you would get it. And the process is fucking agony. And it is designed in a lot of places to just be the most horrifying thing that you've ever experienced. So that you will desist from your asylum claim and just fuck off home, basically. So there are way more options than that. I mean, whether you're talking about, like, Canada, whether you're talking about, like, someplace in Europe, whether you're talking about someplace in Latin America. So don't think of it in terms of, anyone who's looking at this and is thinking of seeking asylum in another country to get the fuck out of the U.S. because of this announced, persecution of trans people on so many different levels, or one of the other things, don't be thinking of it in terms of asylum. Look at your options. Look what a person with a U.S. passport can actually do immigration-wise in various countries. Because you've got way more options than the people who are using the asylum process ever had. And really, both in order to help expedite their asylum proceedings and to ensure that you don't, go through agony that you don't need to, you got other options, and you should be looking into them.
Must be vigilant, but part of vigilance is discernment.
Trying to revoke birthright citizenship is the sort of thing that should actually trigger the vigilance. That's the thing that shows up in the sort of on the side of, oh shit, of discernment. Because the other thing about this, and this annoys me, this annoyed the shit out of me when, Corey Robin was doing this the last time. I bet he's probably doing it this time, too. I blocked him on Facebook because he was just annoying the hell out of me all that time ago, and I haven't read him since. But here's the thing. It's not just the legal effect of these things. When the government does things like this, they are also declaring that they would not have particular concern about targeted violence against the groups that they themselves are declaring open season on. And that is actually a fascist tactic. I mean, sometimes I've heard it called stochastic terrorism, although usually that's not when it's a government outright doing it. But, you know, when, you know, the President of the United States issues the, you know, fuck trans people executive order, or the we would revoke all your fucking citizenship if we could, but we might not because it doesn't seem likely at the moment, executive order, something like that, the chuds get the message. The people who would like to go out and do, like, fucking bigoted, fascist violence get the message that they've got a guy here who's going to be cool with that. And that means that anyone they might target has to be vigilant and preferably and organize for, like, community defense because it's going to be necessary. So, I mean, it's, yeah, he really does not.
Republicans control the House, the Senate, the executive, and the judiciary. And just about every move that has been made till this point, we have granted them electorally. It's our fault.
Wait, okay, so it's not fascism if somebody legally takes office. Like, for example, I mean, that's why it wasn't, like, fascism in 1933 in Germany, because it was legal for Hitler to take office. The powers that he was granted when the lesser evil, Paul von Hindenburg, decided to make him chancellor were things that the electorate had granted him, at least, you know, a very bare plurality of the electorate. So, obviously nothing to worry about. Like, seriously, a little bit of historical self-awareness.
And constant it's our fault. And the constant drumbeat of encroaching fascism will erode the credibility we will need if, hopefully if, and not when, it hits. But the truth is that for now, most objectionable actions have taken place almost entirely within our designed democratic system.
Wait, what, like, motherfucker, have you read a history book? That's how it fucking works. That's how it fucking starts. Everything you just said in the past, like, minute and a half is literally how Hitler got started. I mean, this is not unusual fast shit. Liberalism is transitional to fascism. It creates the institutional structures that make it possible for fascists to actually gain power in the first place. That's how fascism works. That is how liberalism works. It's why both of them suck shit.
Like the confirmation process. Despite claims of meritocracy, Trump has put forth some of the least LinkedIn people you could imagine. I don't know what responsible hiring process you can create that looks at this.
I'm gonna get another refill. Hold on. I feel good. You know, I'm just adding a little bit extra. That's already in there anyway. What do we care? Dad goes. Duncan, Dad, on New Year's Eve.
Not sufficiently.
Who's that guy? I want him leading defense.
Hello, Adrian. Bonsoir.
Waffle House pop-up. Gonna run the 3 million people Department of Defense. But he wasn't foisted upon us by a dictator.
Well, I mean, except the thing is, he kind of was, because the way the U.S. system works, you can't really say that people in the U.S. are spoilt for means of actually directly getting involved in policy decisions in this country. Like, the fact that he... God, this is...
There was no
so
authoritarian end run, no royal edicts.
Okay, so his argument is, this isn't a move towards fascism because it's legal. Which is so interesting, because a long time ago, I happened to find, there was like this dissertation, German Faculty of Law, PhD dissertation from 1936. And as I remember it, the broad gist of it was that the National Socialist Revolution, as it was called, was unique in that it was completely legal. In that it followed, you know, the legal pathways in order to come to power in the first place.
This shit happened to us as designed, advised, but mostly consent. Passed through the Armed Services Committee, put through a Senate vote. 3 Republicans, of course, made a show of it. Because they knew they could lose 3. It was a f***ing performance. And J.D. Vance broke the tie democratically.
Well, as democratically as any of this stuff takes place. But so the fuck what? Like, he really is just point missing
Trump's
on
using
an
the almost
amazing
absolute
scale.
power we have constitutionally granted him and the...
Well, okay, and the thing is, when you talk about presidential power and constitutional grants of power, actually, a lot of presidential power wasn't really so much constitutionally granted as just kind of usurped, and the Supreme Court said, yeah, we're not going to deal with it because it's political question doctrine. I mean, so you can't really say it was constitutionally granted, and also, who's this we? There's nobody alive who wrote that fucking Constitution. There's nobody alive who had any say in who wrote that Constitution. In fact, at the time it was written, there wasn't almost anybody alive who had any say in what went into that Constitution or who even got to write the fucking thing. Like, what do you mean we gave him that power?
Republicans. Because this is Trump's theory of governance. He's already laid it out to not President Bush in 2005, back when he was still accessing Hollywood.
And when you start to like to do it, you can do anything. Grab him by the pussy.
That's his governing philosophy. For all of it.
Yeah, that's the point. That's what makes it concerning, John. That's why it's concerning.
Appointing people, firing people, writing executive orders, taking Greenland, making Wikipedia-like edits to the literal globe. But unfortunately, as of now, he's pretty much just democratically grabbing our pussy.
I mean, more than twice as many people didn't vote for him as did.
Yeah.
If you had, like, any kind of a quorum in the presidential election system in the U.S., there'd have to be a do-over.
Yeah. We said yeah. He has the consent of the people. For God's sakes, his deportation orders are so popular, they have collabs.
TV personality Dr. Phil tagged along on a Chicago raid.
You've never been deported before?
I thought somebody was being hyperbolic when they said fucking Dr. Fool was involved.
Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know?
What a piece of shit.
No, I seen Dr. Phil, you know.
Fuck this guy. Like, a whole new reason to hate Dr. Phil just dropped.
On TV.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How do you know me? You've been in one thing. How do you know I'm Dr. Phil? Because you're on the Dr. Phil show. You're Dr. Phil. How do you know me?
Well, technically he's been in two things. He wasn't Oprah.
Oh, were you in Goodfellas? No, you're Dr. Phil. I know that little egghead anywhere. Little bald mustache, southern drawl. What do you know that? How do you know me? I guess Dr. Phil finally...
What the fuck is he...
catching someone outside.
Like, what the fuck is he even doing there?
How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard somebody say something about Dr. Phil there. And I thought they were, like, saying hyperbolically, this is the sort of shit we're likely to see. And instead, the motherfucker actually rocks up to a fucking, ethnic cleansing raid.
No. Look at this. We're almost done. Look, the Trump administration was clearly ready for this. It was almost as though they had some project for what they might do in 2025. And they're so emboldened, they're not even stopping on American shores.
The president said he thought more than 1 million Palestinians in Gaza could be moved to nearby Arab countries.
What's telling is what he said was the 1.5 million Palestinians in Gaza could be expelled. And the thing that's telling about that is he used that figure more than once. The population of Gaza at last count was 2.3 million. Even allowing for about 100,000 who, fled to Egypt to seek refuge back before Israel and the U.S. closed off the Rafah crossing several months ago. It's reopening now. Then that's like 700,000 people were murdered by the U.S. and Israel in 15 months out of 2.3 million.
What the f***? He's so emboldened, he wants to start deporting people from other people's countries. Dr. Phil will be down in Gaza. Hey, you know me.
Oh God. Send Dr. Phil's ass to Gaza. Just let him fuck around with the Qassam brigades. I'm sure it'd be educational for him.
How do you know me, sir? Habibi, I don't have a television. I don't know you. I don't know, Habibi. Look, I really hope the Democrats figure out a way to contain this guy. The question is probably not, how dare he, though? The question should be, what are you learning from
Well, I mean...
this?
Well, yeah, the
How
Democrats are
would you-
learning fucking nothing. They're learning absolutely nothing because they don't want to learn anything. I mean, like, they know perfectly well that a president can get away with all sorts of shit. Because they see it. They've seen it quite a few times. It's just that somehow, when the Democrats have the House and the Senate and the White House, it's suddenly... we can't do it. The parliamentarian won't let us. Why don't you can fire the parliamentarian? Why don't you fire the parliamentarian? Well, we don't wanna.
Use this power. What's your contract with America? Democrats exist outside of him. Tell people what you would do with the power that Trump is wielding, and then convince
They
us
did, and it was like more genocide and make the borders more deadly again.
to give that power to you as soon as possible. That's the goal. It's enough with the he's a Hitler, he's a thing. Stop doing it. That's terrible. What would you do?
I mean, they said it sucked. Okay. Yeah, he really doesn't get it. Okay, so we got various options. Caleb Muppet is marching towards liberation. That is an 8-hour-long stream, unedited. We've got Graham Linehan fucking talking about his activism, his obsessive hating on trans people, and actually even pissing off gender turficles. We got some Pim Tool. Yeah, Jon Stewart was way funnier like 20 years ago. We've got Pim Tool, we've got Brianna Wu, who is concerned about ethics in trans activism. We've got, let's see. Oh, well, we've got a bunch of things. Any particular preferences on that list? Oh, we've also got Vush on Trump walks back USA takeover of Gaza, which is true, he did walk it back. And we've also got the Surf Times, sick DNC libs, Krasenstein brothers and less, blaming Muslims for Trump. Any particular preferences? We've got a fair bit of time left. I mean, Brianna Wu saying that the trans movement has gone off the rails by demanding... Oh, we've also... I forgot. I had put this in my list, and we never watched it. Cenk Uygur's actual fucking full speech and talk with Charlie Jerk, the white nationalist guy. The one where he says how welcoming the Nazis are. We've got that, too. So, what's everybody thinking? Actually, I think I'll put on Cenk, if any, let's just see how that's looking. Okay, we got a food for Caleb. This does not surprise me. Well, Brianna's short, Caleb's long. So why don't we do one of each? Okay, this is Brianna Wu on ethics in trans activism. She's very big on ethics and trans activism. She's also very big on like ethics in anti-genocide protesting, which she feels is very unethical. She feels that there should be 100% less anti-genocide protesting because it keeps getting in the way of the genocide that she likes. It's her emotional support genocide, don't you know?
Some new developments in the transgender bathroom saga unfolding on
The transgender bathroom saga. I mean, it's like between the Democrats saying this shit where, like, having fucking just basic civil rights is a distraction. This is whether, like, trans people can actually have business in Congress. Because if the only trans person who actually has a bathroom that they can use is Sarah McBride, because she's got a private bathroom because she's a member of Congress, then most trans people simply can't go before Congress.
Capitol Hill, Congresswoman Nancy Mace is going hard against allowing, according to her, biological males in female-only spaces.
Yeah, God, fuck Nancy Mace so much.
And other Republicans are pushing to block transgender individuals from using the restroom that they say aligns with their gender identity.
Oh, fuck you, they say aligns with their gender identity. And also block? This isn't blocking it. This is revoking a right that already existed. This is something that, like, trans people have been doing for kind of fucking ever.
On, quote, federal property. Digging deeper into that bill, it would also apply to buildings owned by the federal or D.C. governments, and maybe...
Well, that's what federal property means, though. That's like, that isn't additionally to federal property. That is...
include the district's public libraries, recreation centers, and potentially D.C. public schools.
Yeah, so basically banning trans people from everything in D.C. And look at this fucking grin on this guy's face as he's saying this. Fuck this guy. I don't know who this jabroni is, but fuck him.
After the election victory of Congresswoman-elect Sarah McBride. McBride will be the first openly transgender woman to serve in the House. She has said this push from lawmakers is a, quote, attempt to misdirect from...
Yeah, and fuck that. Honestly, what I mean, a lot of people are pissed off at McBride, and I can understand that because what she said is bullshit. But I feel like that's missing the forest for the trees because Sarah McBride is very much a DNC person. She is, if she's saying that, it is because the DNC, if she's throwing, you know, trans women under the bus like this, it's because the DNC said that's their policy.
Larger issues.
Does raise many questions. Here to give her take on things is Executive Director of Rebellion PAC, Brianna Wu. Brianna, welcome back to Rising. Thanks for joining us.
Wait, so the one person who they're going to interview to give their take is fucking Brianna Wu on this? Jesus, like, what the fuck is this show?
Thank you. I wish it was on a happier subject, but here we go.
Yes, indeed. I know we have to... Who enjoys talking about using the bathroom? It's such a...
Oh, well, yeah, that's the problem. People don't like to talk about using the bathroom. It's not about, like, trans people being banned from public space. And as much as Brianna Wu basically seems to be on team let the leopards eat trans people's faces... I would not be surprised if she is also on team not my face, please. I didn't realize you meant my face too. You know, like Caitlyn Jenner.
Silly thing for this to have become a major flash.
A silly thing, do you think? A fucking silly thing. Imagine if you weren't allowed to use the fucking public toilet, you dickhead. Ah, sí, po, me acuerdo.
And I suspect there's going to be a decent amount of agreement on this particular subject from the three of us. You know,
I mean, you've just called the right to be able to use public toilets in relative safety silly. And tried to make it about people not wanting to talk about going to the bathroom. And, I mean, just looking at this guy. I know the reason that he doesn't want to talk about going to the bathroom is because he usually ends up in the toilet head first. Because you just want to.
You know, from my point, while I absolutely
I've never heard of this fucking guy, but, like, I just want to give him a fucking swirly.
And about the need for nuance, you know, when you're talking about... And
What nuance? Like, would you like to have nuance about your right to actually, like, have a fucking job, be in public space, go to federal buildings, basic fucking civil rights shit? Would you like to have a nuanced discussion about that? Let's have a nuanced discussion about, like, the whitest guy I've ever seen, being, and how his life would be if he had to navigate it without ever being allowed to set foot in a public toilet.
You do as well when you're talking about, you know, facilities like locker rooms are used by sports teams, when you have people, you know, having to undress in front of other people. I mean, that's something I want to extend more privacy to people in those settings regardless of gender, frankly. But I can see where that calls for different accommodations.
No, it doesn't call for different accommodations. It calls for actually what you just said. Everybody should, I mean, like, a fucking changing room ought to be set up so people don't have to fucking change in front of each other. It's actually kind of fucked up that we've just kind of treated that as normal. That, I mean, that's, you already gave the solution to the non-problem that you were addressing. You don't need to fucking ban trans people from changing rooms. Like, trans people have been using fucking public toilets and public changing rooms and all this shit for decades, or almost certainly longer. Well, as long as this shit has existed, really. And it has never caused a single problem that anyone can find. And you're gonna act like that this is something we need to deal with? That this is... When
it comes to bathrooms, I mean, my takeaway from looking at, you know, over Sarah McBride, who I didn't know until this entire controversy started, is that if this person was forced to...
Oh, wow, we're already doing the degendering. That's neat.
...use the male restroom, I think that would create almost even a greater discomfort in that...
Well, you think? You think that maybe that might be more than discomfort? You think that might actually be actively dangerous? If she were forced as a woman to use the men's, especially in a Congress full of men who actually kind of fucking low-key hate women, well, high-key actually.
Circumstance, because she is very female presenting and passing.
Oh wow, ooh, she's passing, Jesus Christ. Like, this fucking guy, like, man. Fucking hell.
What were the overheard words by the Nazi child masturbating in the bathroom?
And that this is kind of not a great idea.
She's one of the good ones. Maybe we should let her actually be able to have biological needs.
That's my, you know, gut reaction.
Why should you have a fucking gut reaction? Like, imagine, see, that's neat that you get to have a gut reaction in a public space. Because if, like, under rules like this, if trans women's fucking guts react, they're not allowed to do anything about it. Imagine what your fucking life would be like if you had to worry about, like, fucking getting arrested. If your gut was reacting and you had to do something about it.
What's yours?
Well, I tend to agree with that, Robbie. And, you know,
Agree with what? Agree with what part, Brianna?
Look, I love men. I've been married to a man for 16 years and counting. But the truth is, some guys get a little, you know, frankly, weird when, you know, they find out we're trans. And I think if you're...
yeah, they get, like, weird. I mean, they get sort of, like, homicidal grade weird.
Forcing women like Sarah and I into the men's room. It's going to be a very dangerous situation for us. I do just want to give some charity to the other side. And
why? Why the fuck do they? Why are they entitled to any charity? Like, we've been over this for fucking years. They've never come up with a single piece of evidence of there ever being a problem with trans people being allowed in the public toilets. The only people who are at risk of violence in public toilets when trans people are in them are the trans people. Like, what fucking charity do these Nazis... What charity would you like to extend to them, Brianna?
The kernel of truth, like Nancy Mace...
What kernel of truth? There's no fucking kernel of truth.
power if there were not truth to what she's saying.
There is no truth to what she's saying.
And the reality is the trans movement has gone off the rails.
Wait, yeah, like, that's an interesting segue, because, see, when you're saying that there's truth to what she's saying, the way that works, the way discourse works, is that then you segue in and you say, okay, for example, there was this thing that happened and that was bad, and there was this thing that happened that was bad, but she's not doing that because she knows perfectly well there is no fucking evidence, no example she can point to.
They have pushed for an all-new system called self-ID.
That isn't an all-new system, and it has existed in a number of countries for a very long time. It's never caused any problems.
And what this means is when I transitioned 20 years ago, I had to go to a therapist for 3 months. I had to get on
and so you know that's fucking pointless.
HRT. I had to have a doctor sign a letter to basically say, look, this person has clinical medical gender dysphoria.
Well, yeah, and the doctor's role in this was pointless because the only thing they didn't know. They don't know any more about you than you do. You diagnosed yourself, and the doctor confirmed it because they know that there's nobody better to actually talk about your fucking gender than you.
She is medically, committing to transition.
But, like, so what?
Today, that system has been completely removed by activists. And
yes, because the thing is, it's kind of fucked up that people should be forced to undergo medical procedures that they may not even need or want in order to get any level of basic social recognition of their humanity. That's kind of fucked up. Like, yeah, 20 years ago, it was just openly okay to say, yeah, if you want your gender recognized, you have to be literally sterilized and stuff like that, and nobody batted a fucking eyelash. Yeah, lots of things sucked 20 years ago.
And the reality is, Robbie, you could go fill out a form right now in California, declare you're a female, and waltz into a locker room and wave your penis around.
Yeah, how many times has that happened, Brianna, since you're going to be talking about medicalizing trans people when they don't want to be, they don't want medical intervention, certainly. Because there are, like, trans people who do want medical intervention. But there are other ones who are actually, they're fine the way they are. They just want to be recognized as who they are, which does not, in their case, require any change to their physicality. And they shouldn't be required to go through that if they don't want it. That's fucked up, actually.
If you wanted to.
And Brianna, I think you'll find that even under self-ID, indecent exposure and sexual harassment are still illegal.
This is very bad policy, and it is the truth.
Then it should be really, really easy for you to point out examples of the thing you just threw out there.
Transgender fringe that has pushed it to the point that Nancy Mace has to have an answer for this. So
there is no answer for this. There's nothing to answer. Like, that's why you're just coming up with wild-ass hypotheticals that never happened.
If we are serious about protecting trans...
Like, if somebody is... Okay, we're talking... Her example is a flasher. Why the hell is a flasher who's committing actually a more serious offense than walking into the wrong toilet? Why would a flasher go through the bureaucracy of, filling out a self-ID form? Why? That doesn't give them any legal protection to flash people, actually. There is not anything in the law that says you're allowed to do this. And what's really fucked up with her bringing up California, and this was a really well-known case, it got a lot of coverage, and I would be shocked if she didn't know about it. I think it was like 10 years ago, maybe even longer. This trans teenage girl in high school in California got publicly smeared by a right-wing group called the Pacific Justice Foundation, which it turned out the gender turfical community was directly collaborating with. And they claimed, based on nothing, based on no one saying anything, based on no witnesses, that she was like sexually harassing other girls in the toilet at, you know, at her high school. It was a complete lie. Like, literally nobody ever came forward and said this. There was no evidence. There was no reason to believe it happened. She ended up in fucking suicide watch as a result of that. It was a lie. It was a complete fucking lie that almost could have killed her, and nothing happened to the people who did that. They're still there. They're still rich. Their organization still fucking exists, and it's still trying to ruin lives. Like, what she's talking about, this is, I can't really stress enough, she's talking about things that nobody has an actual example of them happening.
Gender people, we need to retreat to the medical protocols.
The medical protocols have actually evolved in the past 20 years because also the medical profession has realized that they were harming people with the protocols 20 years ago. Because it was fucked up that you had to go to some fucking therapist, not because you needed therapy, not because you needed help working out what was going on in your head and what was going on in your life, but because you needed somebody to gatekeep your access to who you are. That was fucked up, and it killed people, actually.
That guaranteed our rights for almost 40 years.
I know there's a lot of politics in this issue,
You think?
Brianna, but I do think that personal experiences are really important and often get sort of erased or
So why don't you give us an example of a personal experience where any of this shit you were talking about actually happened?
Treated badly in terms of the political debates around them. In terms of your transition, how traumatic did you feel?
Okay, this guy is giving fucking Balamina. I'm guessing he's got RUC in his family.
Find that? How was it a relief to finally transition?
Like, what the fuck? Where did these guys? What? Does this guy not know what the fucking interview's about? Did he sleep on this interview? He thinks it's like Maury Povich in 1993?
Tell us just a little
and he's talking to fucking Tula?
more, if you are willing to do so, about that experience.
Of course, I knew...
Why should you, wait a second. Your whole thing was that supposedly other women's privacy is harmed by trans women having access to public toilets, Brianna. Based on, again, 0 cases of actual harm being done. 0 cases of trans people doing anything fucked up in public toilets. Ever. And this guy is grossly invading your privacy in a way that is totally irrelevant to this conversation. And totally irrelevant to this topic, and you're just going to be like, yeah, why don't we talk about it? Fuck off.
Something was really, really deeply wrong with me when I was 3 years old.
I mean, you can't help pointing out that something else is still very deeply wrong with her.
And every time I tried to act in a way that felt natural to me, I got punished.
Well, yes, and you're saying there should be more of that. That's what you're saying. Because when you're saying there should be all this bullshit gatekeeping that serves no legitimate medical purpose, no therapeutic purpose for the patient, the person who is actually the only person who matters in that particular context.
There were not exactly gender-affirming youth clinics.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, so what you're saying is that actually things kind of sucked back then. The time that you want to go back to. The time you want to send everybody else back to because you've got some sort of weird fucking medicalization thing.
Mississippi in the 80s and 90s, and it took a very, very heavy toll. By 19, I was a full-on drug addict, just trying to get these thoughts about how I desperately wanted to be a woman out of my head.
Yeah. I mean, and that is a horrible fucking experience. And the thing is, my empathy is a little bit limited in the sense that she's sitting here looking at the way things were 20, 30 years ago and saying that's how they should be now. because Nazi-ass Nancy Mace wants to hurt trans people. Nancy Mace, who really has a lot of nerve talking about how fucking... how, you know, about anyone, you know, forcing their way into a gendered space. Like, I don't know if you know the background on Nancy Mace. She was the first woman to be admitted to the Citadel. She went all the way to the Supreme Court to get admitted to the Citadel. A very gendered space where she was not welcome, but she felt that she was entitled by right to be. And I have to say, I mean, the Citadel shouldn't exist, but I mean, to the extent that it is, I mean, I suppose it shouldn't be fucking sexist. But, I mean, yeah, so, like, Nancy Mace has a lot of fucking balls.
What was really amazing is the instant I got on HRT and I started transitioning, I went from a drug-addicted shut-in to, you know, literally a national figure within 5 years.
Okay, and you're saying that you feel that it was good that there were bullshit restrictions that slowed that down for you. Like, I mean, she's literally describing exactly why the model that imposed all sorts of hoops and bullshit to run through, it is actually harmful by describing her own life in response to a totally impertinent and irrelevant question from fucking Ian Paisley over there. But, like, what the fuck?
My career took off. I've literally hired over 200 people in my career, and I think most people would say I'm a political leader today.
I mean, I don't know if I would say that much. I mean, she had a moment around, like, fucking Gamergate, and she squandered the shit out of it, actually.
Yeah, America's a choice. They can give people like me a path to get health care, and...
The path exists! People are getting the health care. I mean, if anything, the path right now is too hard, in part because healthcare in this country is for profit, and so you end up, you know, it being limited to people who actually can afford it.
To contribute to society, or you can deny us legitimacy in the public square.
And Nancy Mace is trying to deny you all that, actually. And you're saying we should be charitable because there are, like, 0 cases of the harm that she claims trans people are doing by having access to public spaces.
And basically spend a lot more money and have a lot of lost talent on the table. So what I...
Like, this is like when liberals try to make the deportation raids about the price of fucking food and the unavailability of farmers because they're all hiding from ICE, and their landlords go out and complain about, you know, the fucking crops rotting because even though they get called farmers in the media, they have absolutely nothing to do with those crops, except that they make money off of the sale of them, and they own the fucking land where the farmers work. I mean, like, it's not, like, the fact that it actually just hurts trans people, that it makes trans people's lives impossible, that, like, literally over 260,000 people have been internally displaced by this fucking reign of terror against trans people that started under Biden, who made it possible, open the fucking floodgates with a couple of his administrative law changes. Like, this is, like, fuck, you know, fuck this idea that, you know, this fucking, like, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer thing where it's like, yes, okay, trans people have shiny noses and can guide your light, and so that's why you shouldn't kill them. No, trans people, you shouldn't be killed because they're people, and you shouldn't be going around, like, fucking killing people, because that's a fucked up thing to do.
I'm asking my fellow Americans is, I understand trans civil rights has gone off course.
No, it hasn't. Like, literally, how is it? She still hasn't said how it's gone off course.
I'm putting a lot of political capital on the line trying to correct that, and you can see Democrats like Seth Moulton.
And no, is she trying to correct that? She's literally making the arguments that are needed to I mean, and also, trans civil rights have gone... There's, like, literally no statutory protection for trans civil rights in the U.S. Not at the federal level. At the state level, in some places, fortunately, there is some. At the federal level, there's administrative fucking guidance that can be taken away from one administration to the next.
And trying to step up and guide us back to reality on the...
Which reality? The reality where you ended up, like, hooked on all sorts of drugs because you were self-medicating the trans out of you? Like, that's the reality that you're trying to get us back to. You said, like, that was, like, the fucking golden age. At the same time as you explained that it was such a shitty time for trans people that you couldn't handle it sober. Which is not a judgment on her, I should be very, very clear. It is not. It is a judgment on how fucking shitty the society was to trans people, before trans people had, like, any position in the fucking discourse. Yeah, that is not, I mean, when I say that, I judge her for very many things. I do not judge her for that. I judge her, however, for wanting to go back, saying that, like, 20, 30 years ago, it was when trans rights were not derailed. You know, back when she was completely, where she was completely shut out of the things she needed in order to make a life for herself that didn't require substantial fucking, chemical lubrication.
So I think if the American people will be patient for just a year, I think we're going to see some real changes.
What real changes? Like...
And the way these things are legislated.
And let's just remember, like, she's talking about the American people. The polls say that actually what freaks people out is not trans people, but this obsession with attacking trans people. That she is fucking being a capo for.
And I think they'll see public policy that balances the needs of their daughters with the needs of kids who are exactly like I am.
What trans people aren't somebody's daughter too? Like, fucking hell, there's no balancing there. I mean, she's already, like, by making it, saying, like, myself and everything, she's already accepting the idea that she is inherently some sort of a threat. Except that she is gonna be, she's a fucking pick-me. She's saying that this is, it's just the bad transes who are the threat, or something like that. Jesus Christ. Brianna Wu is just... fucking hell. Yes, why don't we switch over? We're closing in on it, but we might as well. Okay, here we go. This is Marching Towards Liberation, which, I mean, isn't that the vibe that you get from the past couple of weeks, chat? Oh, wait. Okay, I'm looking at that microphone and it has a muffler on it that says Первый. That's, Russian Channel 1.
First question is what's your name for our report?
My name is Caleb Maupin. That's CALEB MAUPIN.
Well, I mean, I'm so glad that he shares this with us.
So where did you come from? Well, I live in New York City. I'm originally from Ohio. I'm from the United United States.
Wait, they're just interviewing him. Okay. So this isn't Russian state TV interviewing him because he's a big shit? This is Russian state TV interviewing him because he's a random guy in the street. They didn't know who he was.
What is the quantity overall of your delegation? We have 15 delegates total who are attending the festival. I have arrived, so have a couple other members. We're still waiting for a few others to arrive. They'll be flying into Sochi this afternoon. What is your prime purpose of visiting this festival, your delegation? Well, we see it as our responsibility to do what Joe Biden has failed to do. Our president, Joe Biden, is determined to have hostility to Russia. He has gone out of his way to escalate international tensions.
Yeah, like, okay, could you stop swaying the fucking camera?
For very selfish and geostrategic reasons. He's defending an international system. The greed of big banks, corporations, and oil companies that view Russia as competitors. He doesn't represent the real America. He shows Americans want peace. Americans want friendship with Russia, also friendship with China, friendship with People's Korea. Biden's escalation of international tension does not represent what the American people want. According to all the...
He has a very weaselly profile.
The Americans want peace.
Who the fuck is that guy?
Они опасались ли сюда приезжать вот как раз на фоне всех мировых тех событий?
I mean, the audio is shit. Why doesn't he just clip the segment, for fuck's sake? Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead because this is annoying. I was thinking he's got a weaselly profile. Oh, here's that guy again.
Regardless of how you feel about American politics, that was a historic moment. When Donald Trump shook hands with Kim Jong-un. That was a historic...
I mean, it was a historic example of an enthusiasm differential.
...moment. And one thing I think that we can recognize here is that if Korea could come together, if Korea could reconcile...
Which they haven't, and actually they are farther from than they have been in a while. Like, to the extent that... North Korea has responded to the right-wing government and their extreme hostile position by, like, actually sort of removing a lot of references to reunification from even their music. Like, you will find there are all these songs, including the fucking national anthem, where normally it used to be that there would be a reference to Korea as being 3,000 ri, which is a traditional measurement. I believe it's actually originally a Chinese measurement, but was adopted in Korea and a few other places. And the thing is, 3,000 ri is the different distance between Mount Pektu in the northern border with China and Mount Halla and the far south of South Korea. And they're getting rid of that because they're sort of like, they've kind of gone off reunification, at least in the short to medium term. So, like, this is just a wild thing to be saying.
The whole world could come together if we had peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula.
Which Trump didn't want. Trump was trying to stop
We're here at the World Youth Festival, and there's a special exhibit room about NATO and the origins of the NATO alliance, how it was formed, kind of to finish the work that the Nazis were doing and trying to destroy Russia. A lot of interesting themes.
Except the Nazis weren't trying to destroy Russia. They were very specifically trying to destroy the Soviet Union more than anything. Russia is not the Soviet Union.
We're just going to walk through this fascinating display, a lot of different items on display, a lot of different artwork and artifacts, etc. So we're just going to take a walk through the festival, through this area. Here we have a history of deception, a history of evil. NATO is the largest military, political, and intelligence alliance under the leadership of the United States, created 75 years ago, 1949, to quote...
So he's going to read the NATO exhibit.
...contain the Soviet Union. So North Atlantic Alliance, after the collapse of the USSR, not only did it not cease to exist, very important point, but it also increased the number of participants from 16 to 31, which they promised would not happen, right? They said NATO would never move an inch eastward. But
I mean, that is true. There was a deal that was part of German reunification not to expand NATO at all. Like, because the Soviet Union did not want even a reunified Germany to be part of NATO. But they actually relented and said, okay, we will let the territory of the former German Democratic Republic become part of NATO. We'll be okay with that. but only if you don't absorb anyone else.
Yet it continued to move. Let's see what else they've got in here. A lot of interesting stuff.
Okay, it is time for me to wrap up. Thanks to everyone who joined in. It's always good to see you. I will be back tomorrow at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, and I look forward to seeing you then. And yes, he does kind of have a penguin-y thing going on. He really does.